Welcome to Living a Conscious Life podcast, where we explore and discuss the importance of finding more peace, wholeness, and freedom in our lives. I'm Don Johnson, your host, an American living in Scotland. Being conscious means being awake, being present. When we're present, we can pay more attention to what's happening within us and around us. We can make better choices and be more effective at whatever we're doing. Living a conscious life is about bringing more self-awareness into our lives. Let's get into it. Okay, so my guest today is Sarito Carol. Hello, and we have met before because you were with me a year or more ago, I believe, right?
Approximately.
Yep.
Yep.
And for those that don't know, I wanted to say a couple things about Sarito. So Sarito was in the Bhagwan Shree Rajneesh cult, also known as the Osho cult. She was a young lady, a young girl, really, at 9 years old, I think, when your mother took you to India. You were in the ashram there. Eventually, you came back to near Antelope, Oregon, and she lived there. And she had an amazing story that she's told that's in the book that she's published called In the Shadow of Enlightenment. And it's a fabulous book that tells an amazing story of a young girl who was abused by older men. And this story was not in the Wild Wild Country Netflix documentary that talked about Osho. It seems to be conveniently left out. So Sarito wrote this book, published it about a year ago, and told her story. Incredibly powerful. And now you have become a health practitioner. You live in, well, I'm not going to say where you live. That's up to you to say that. And you had to find your way back into a new life after living in what many of us have no idea about. So I'm honored to have you here. You're incredibly brave and courageous. You're a whistleblower. You've spoken the truth, and I applaud you for that. So thank you. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Don Johnson. I was in the Prem Rawat cult, formerly known as Guru Maharaji, the young Indian boy who came to the West in the 70s. I was an instructor in the 70s into the 80s. I was the president of Elan Vital for 3 or 4 years in the early 80s in Miami. And then I gradually left, started a new life. And now I'm taking opportunities when I can to do podcasts and to share with audiences the truth about Prem Rawat, what he's really like and what really happened in order for him to build his financial empire. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So today is going to be a conversation with Sarito. We're going to go back and forth a little bit. I've got some things I'm really curious about asking her, and she may ask me some things too about my experience as a whistleblower. So anyway, for those of you listening, thank you for joining us. We're going to try to keep this to about 30 minutes or so. We'll do our best. Who knows? Maybe we'll go longer. We don't know. But we're going to have a good time speaking about what we are passionate about. So anyway, Sarito, thank you for joining and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me back.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So you have been doing a lot of interviews. I saw your interview on YouTube with I think the TV station in
KGW
Portland.
News, which is the NBC station in Portland, Oregon.
Exactly. And I watched a lot of that. Very powerful, very powerful. And so what's it been like for you to, write this book? You've been on podcasts, you've been on like the TV interview. You're telling the story. I don't know if there's anybody else telling a story like that other than you about your Osho experience. So what's it like being you?
Well, it's interesting. It's sort of a dichotomy because the writing of the book was very much like being in the cocoon and processing it all and And I think I needed that in order to write what I did because it's so personal. So it was in a way like being completely private. And then the book comes out and you're suddenly, it's almost like you're birthing the book, but you're also with that, you're exposed to the world with this story, which is quite intense and which draws a lot of scrutiny from not just people who are still devoted to Osho, but from people who kind of believe in a lot of the new age catchphrases and that philosophy, the philosophies of you create your own reality, or, you know, people who just don't want that sort of religious system of freedom to be challenged. And so it doesn't even matter what the details are. It doesn't matter what, you know, that there's children that were abused or neglected. Is kind of like, well, that was just a part of it, but let's not focus on that. Let's stick to our perspective because it's too painful to, because if we really think about and accept what you're talking about, then in a way it blows up our whole worldview.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
when it first came out, there was definitely a lot of pushback. And I'll just also say there are some other of my peers who have spoken out. There's a documentary in Europe called Children of the Cult, which has not made it to the US. But because I've written my book, you know, I've done a lot of my own promotion and have sort of felt like a lone soldier with my story, at least in America, for the most part. So to be me, it's like I live a pretty private life with these little blips of public exposure.
Yeah. And I've seen a lot of the comments on, particularly on that TV station, you know, interview, which was well over a half an hour, I think, wasn't it?
It was an hour.
It was
It's
an
an
hour,
hour
wasn't it?
long. They put up the whole hour. They also did a
Yeah.
actual news piece that
Yeah.
aired, which was more like 12 minutes.
Yeah.
But the hour in studio interview has gained a lot of traction.
Yeah. And if anybody hasn't seen that, maybe we can provide the information to the link or the title so people can search for it on YouTube. But it was incredibly powerful. And if people haven't seen it, I'd certainly, you know, recommend it because it's a real education. And you took a lot of flack.
Yeah.
You've taken a lot of flack for
A
speaking
lot
out.
of flack, a lot of flack. And you know, we'll say that at first it was really hard. I think the hardest part was the people closer to me that were still friends from the community, but didn't,
Mhm.
you know, support me or, you know, sort of couldn't name the abuse I experienced as abuse or thought I should get over it. They didn't think it should go so far as to implicate Osho and the community.
Yeah.
It's more like, well, those are a few bad seeds and it doesn't affect it doesn't reflect at all on the community.
Yeah.
And my argument has been all along that this community has created
Yeah.
a environment in which these abuses could happen. And
Yeah.
so therefore it is about the teachings, it is about the community. It's not just about a few pedophiles who joined.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, there's been pushback from that. That was hard.
Mhm.
But, and then all the nasty comments that you said that you saw, I mean, there's lots of them. And sometimes I get nasty emails.
Yeah.
Luckily, I haven't been receiving threats.
Yeah.
I got a couple sort of threats in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So surprisingly, it's been pretty smooth sailing once I've, for one, stopped reading all the comments and also just realizing that they don't understand the whole story. Like people are writing comments having not read my book.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I saw that too, where it was clear that people just jumped to, I guess, a conclusion, and it was clear they hadn't read your book, you know.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of like me just sort of being like, well, they don't know, and
Yeah.
and learning to not let that in, because I know in my soul, in every cell of my body, that I've told the truth to the best of my ability.
Mhm.
And so when you have that, it sort of gives you a strength to be like, it's not negotiable.
Yeah.
It's not negotiable. Yeah.
Yeah. A couple things you said. I mean, I feel very much the same way. When I have written my articles on Medium or put up things on YouTube, I have no doubt in my mind that what I'm saying is true based on facts. I'm not trying to slander or defame Prem Rawat, you know. what I'm doing is exposing eyewitness accounts, my own experience, and putting that out there. And like you say, and this is where it goes broader than just your experience within the Osho cult, like you say, people want to sort of dumb it down and say, oh, there were a few bad apples, right? But there's like an institutional kind of culture kind of created, right?
Yeah.
I think it, and I can't speak for every cult because I was only in one that I know of, and there's, but there's many out there. But the same thing happened in what was known as Divine Light Mission, which was the organization that supported Prem Rawat. There was a cult, there was an environment there too. There were key followers of his who raped and molested young women. And that was buried by many of the higher ups in the organization. One was settled out of court, and others were dismissed, not paid attention to. And it's highly likely that that Prem Rawat knew that the individual who was doing these deeds, nefarious deeds, was doing them. Highly likely he knew. What did he do? He sent him back to India.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like,
right?
I feel like these themes are, we're two people have personal experience, but I've heard other stories. It seems like the scenario just plays out over and over again. And then there's so much spiritual bypassing that, minimizes or erases the story of people who are abused.
Right.
And it's almost like, well, that's inconvenient to our representation, how we represent ourselves. So we'll just, ignore them, silence them, whitewash them. And then, it's like, it brings me back to the Epstein case, honestly.
Yeah.
There's this, it's like the victims are the ones that have to fight and fight and fight to be heard. And these systems are so big and they're suppressing.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's the case in yours. And
it's the same.
I'm sure there was many more witnesses in the culture you're in that didn't speak up because that was the culture and it wasn't permitted.
Yeah, it was squashed. Yeah, it was squashed.
Yeah.
People don't want to hear it. Yeah. It will disrupt the status quo. That's what seems to happen.
And breaking through the structure of the status quo is very fortified.
Yeah. And clearly for people who don't know, Prem Rawat has a very litigious approach to anything that would threaten to expose the truth. For example, there was a documentary that was being worked on a few years ago, and that documentary got squashed by a very litigious approach to the potential documentarian, and it was shut down in a sense. And on my previous podcast, I mentioned that I was going to go on Rachel Bernstein's podcast. She got a very litigious letter from a well-known defamation firm in the US, one of the most prestigious, and threatened her, and she pulled the podcast. I spoke about it on a YouTube thing that I shot. And so it makes you wonder, doesn't it, when those that are in power use NDAs and law firms to silence people that want to speak out. It makes you wonder, what are they hiding?
Right. No, I mean, they're obviously, they're using the law or the legal, whatever, mumbo jumbo to basically stymie any stories from coming out. In your case, in my case, they just ignore my and the other's existence, essentially. We just don't exist. It's silent treatment to the nth degree. But I'm wondering, so how long have you been speaking out? Or when did you first sort of see signs that something was off when you were with Prem Rawat? And how many years have you been out?
No, good question. So, for me, back in 1977 or 8, I was on my way to Malibu to be an instructor. And somebody told me at that time that Prem Rawat was heavily drinking. And I never heard anything about that. And so at this time, he was probably, what was he in? Probably about 20 years old, 22 years old, something like that. He was married by that time to an older woman that he met, American. So I had doubts. Something about that rubbed me the wrong way. And I couldn't figure it out because he was supposed to be enlightened, bringing world peace, the master of the time, et cetera, et cetera. And now that I look back on that, I don't think I even realized how deep the problem was, because later I found out that he'd been drinking every night for years, and a lot of it by people who were close to him was said to be because he was stressed out, because he was pretending to be something that he wasn't.
So it made you wonder if he was really enlightened then.
Well, that's what I mean. So the whole thing was a sham from the beginning, because he was playing a role. And basically, when you anesthetize yourself with anything, with drugs or alcohol or any kind of addictive behavior, the question then becomes, what is causing that? What is causing that stress? So that's my first, to answer your question, that was my first doubt. And I kind of carried through. I became an instructor. I went on, and the next 4 or 5 years, I got very involved in the organization. And I kind of just put it aside. I just said, you know what? There must be something wrong with me, because everybody else doesn't seem to care. So I guess it's my stuff. I got to sort it out in my own head. And despite the fact that I even asked him about it at one point, and he looked at me and he said, "Who told you?" That was the first thing out of his mouth. He wanted to know who ratted him out. That was more important than the fact that I was sitting there in front of him suffering.
Right.
And struggling.
It was about his staving face, basically.
So yes, and it was more about like, oh, maybe it was a game, or it's your mind, and so blah blah blah. So anyway, the point of it is, in the story of Divine Light Mission and Prem Rawat and Elan Vital, there was these ashrams that supported a lot of his activities, and in the early '80s, they were shut down, and I was part of that. So, and at the time when that decision was made, I was part of communicating that to the various people that worked for me, who spread it out across the world, and so on and so on. Anyway, then at that point, I was quite ready to like go and, begin a normal life. I didn't start writing and coming out publicly until around the time of COVID. And what happened was I had a chance to do some writing on Medium, and I started to process my whole experience, which I was gradually becoming less and less involved over a period of 10 or 15 years. I was like a slow drip. Some people cut like cold turkey. I was like a slow kind of dripper. So eventually I got to this point where I told my story, how I reclaimed my life from being in a cult. And I published it on Medium. And when I wrote that article, it was a cathartic way for me to process what I'd been through. And I got more clear and more clear about it as I wrote it. And that really helped me psychologically start to untangle the big mess that was in my head about how my life was destined to be part of this movement of world peace and to find a master, all the beliefs that started to form. The slow untangling those beliefs for me took a long time and a lot of work, actually, to come to terms with the fact that I had been fooled. And this is one of the things that I've talked to a lot of people about who've reached out to me. A lot of what I hear is there's this sense of, was I that stupid? Is there something wrong with me? What did I do to deserve this? Or what did I miss? Why didn't I see this? I said, hey, there's a lot of very smart people who are all in the same boat.
Yeah, it's not about stupidity or naivety even. It's just about getting, I don't know what the right way to say it is, but indoctrinated, I guess. And then you just adapt to that whole belief system. And once you're in
Yes.
it longer and longer, it just, you sort of, your own internal voice about what feels off gets quieter and quieter.
Totally. I'll say one more thing and I'm going to come back to you, but I look back at I kept journals from the time I was in college, and I kept them when I was in the ashram from 1972. And I went back and read some of my early journals, and within a few months of attending nightly meetings and being part of a community of people in Boston, I drank the Kool-Aid deeply. I began to fully want to believe that he was who everybody else said he was.
Yeah.
So, right. So the conversion happened quickly is my point. And then I went, further and deeper into that belief. And it was a belief, and it was a hope that the belief is true. It was almost like two things, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why, for me, and everybody's different about how they process this. So for me, it just took a little bit more time for me to come to terms with it and then speak out publicly. Because if you ask me, why did you speak out publicly? I said, because I knew it was the right thing to do and nobody else was doing it. Other people had spoken out publicly back in 2000 when the internet came and there was a website where ex-followers would speak out. And that broke the ice for me and for a lot of people. So that helped me. And I felt, well, maybe I can help some others. And as it turns out, that's the case, because a lot of people have spoken to me and thanked me for speaking out, as well as some other people who I'm in a community with who have also had the courage to speak out, including Prem Rawat's eldest son, his wife, and some other people who have had the courage to post and go out publicly with a lot of conviction and strength. And I really admire those people if you're listening. Anyway, back to you. So I think you were thinking about something as I was speaking that maybe something struck you. I don't know, maybe I misread your body language, but.
Well, no, I mean, I think the one thing that crossed my mind is like, it took you a long time. It took me a long time too. And I'm just wondering if that's a general theme in these cults, because I've gotten pushback. Well, why did it take you 40 years? Blah, blah, blah. I know for me, it's about complex PTSD. It doesn't have a timeline. And when you still experience it as if it happened yesterday, certain things like the actual physiology.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of criticism about like, well, why didn't you let it go? It's been so long. It's because of the PTSD. It doesn't, time does heal many wounds. And I do think time gave me a lot of perspective to the point where I could process it. But I don't think that taking a long time is unusual. And the other fact is that most people who are sexually abused when they're children, they come out around the age 50, which was actually pretty much in line with me. And like you, I started writing in the pandemic, and it was very much also a way for me to process and also sort of remember things that I hadn't remembered, like putting the puzzle together. And so that just helped me have a lot more clarity versus these sort of compartmentalized bits. I could put it all into one narrative, which helped me make sense of it.
Yeah.
As I shared it with the world.
Yeah. And you've done something, which is you've shared your sexual abuse so publicly. And, you're going on podcasts like what we're doing. You've been on all these things. I mean, how do you deal with that? I mean, how is that for you? I mean,
it's surreal. It's surreal, honestly. Like I said at the beginning, it's sort of like I'm out there in the public, and yet my daily life hasn't actually changed very much. Yes, I'm putting effort into doing these things and to writing more, like some essays I'm hoping to write, on topics that interest me, both about my experience, but also just other topics in that sort of wheelhouse. But it's a very interesting thing. It makes me wonder what it's like to be someone in the public. Like, you obviously still have your private life. And so, I get emails, and I'm on these I get comments under videos I'm on, but other than that, I have a lot of privacy, and I hope it stays that way.
Yeah, right.
But it is weird. At first, I think my nervous system was on overdrive because it was just so much, and I hadn't sort of acclimated to realize like, I can still have my privacy. I can still have a private life without everything being public.
Mhm.
But being someone who's been very introverted most of my life, or all of my life,
Mhm.
and also kind of, I think one of my survival mechanisms was sort of to hide. So this has probably been a bit of a healing process too, to stay steady. And by speaking out, I've actually found, instead of it making me feel uncomfortable, in a way, it's made me more comfortable because I'm actually standing in my own truth, and I'm speaking out without reservation, not to defame anyone, not to hurt anybody, but to basically stand up for what is the truth and what I experienced, and not being a chameleon anymore, trying to, people please, because that's been a major pattern in my life.
Yeah. Just shifting gears just slightly, which is from like survivors. I guess it's, what do you hope like survivors or anybody that's been abused, what can they take from your story?
I mean, I first hope that they get that I have extreme empathy and compassion. And I think being on the other side of that, when I meet somebody that has or comes across with that compassion and empathy, you feel seen. And so I sort of want them to know that even if I don't know who they are, I see them, I get the deep emotion. Like when I see interviews with others, I mean, even just talking about it, I want to cry. It's like such a deep wound that I just feel like there needs to be a solidarity. And I'm hoping by showing up vulnerably that some people can feel that. And I also want people that have been abused, like, to not give up and to like actually have faith in themselves, and know that there are people out there, like many, I'm just one voice, who want to support and, have them feel that they are worth fighting for themselves, and that
That's
they don't
beautiful.
have to be under the weight of these powerful systems that try to keep them silent.
Yeah.
And
Well,
the more that we all stick together, the more
Yeah.
power we have.
Yeah.
It's not just about cults. It's not just about, but there's multiple new age cults in which women are abused. So that's not to exclude that, but I feel like there's these concentric rings and there's abuse in so many environments. And yeah, it's time to challenge the status quo of, the old boys club. Oh, blah, 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 keep it quiet.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one example. There's multiple ways people are silenced.
No, that's a powerful example. That's a powerful thing you're saying. It really is.
Yeah.
So it's really is. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I could do more, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm only one person.
Mm-hmm. You're doing a lot. That's the thing. You're doing a lot. You really are. And it makes a lot of waves because people feel threatened. I mean, I see the same thing with when I, write my articles and get the negative comments on YouTube, and people just think I'm just absolutely like, went off the rails.
Like, how does that affect you?
I just a lot, sometimes depending on how they write the comment, if it's not sometimes if it's really hostile, I'll come back first very, very gently and sort of, replay it and not go on the attack because
it doesn't get you anywhere.
It's like silly. So, and sometimes I try to engage them, in a dialogue. And I did that the other day with somebody on a YouTube video. And at first it started out like just really attacking me. And then, gently, then kindly by the end of it, like I said, well, what about this? We sort of had this conversation, and it ended up like, okay, so fine, go ahead, do your thing. I'm going to continue to do mine. We agree to disagree. Here's why so in a way, like, I'm not interested in like getting into arguments with people because I'm not here, like, same with you. You're not here to convince anybody of anything. I'm just stating the facts. You stated your story. You stated the facts. And for those people who are curious or are open-minded about the whole thing, then what I might be saying could be helpful.
Yeah.
People that have been following Prem Rawat for 50 years or more, like I did to a point, what I think is happening is, their whole life has been oriented around him, and they have an inner experience that they associate with him. They're not able to, or don't want to, separate the two, which I had to do because I said I have to separate the teachings from the teacher. And because there's something for me about what I experienced that was very real. And what I mistook and what was presented to me was, well, that's because it's his teachings, his techniques. It's because of his divineness that I'm having an inner experience. And I believed that for a long time. Eventually, I had to separate that and say, wait a second. Whatever those techniques of meditation are, they're ancient. He didn't invent them. He didn't create them. He didn't even teach them to me. Some other guy did that was an apostle of his who was a nut job. And so what I did, if I have any experience, it's because I put the work in. And if I feel
right, so it's more about how we take certain teachings, because I've been thinking a lot about spirituality, like how doesn't mean because you're a whistleblower about a cult that you're not interested in spirituality. And so how have you sort of navigated that, and what is your like spiritual perspective now?
Yeah, very much kind of like what I'm saying is like I have my own practice, and it's certainly a derivative of what I was taught, but I don't associate the inner experience that I have with anything outside of me.
Right.
I don't project it like, oh, it's because of a guru. Oh, it's because of it's Prem Rawat's blessings that I have this experience. No.
Right. You're not special because you are his disciple. You are you. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a super key point, because I think a lot of people in cults, and I know I experienced this, and I think a lot of people that I was with did, was the fact that human beings want to be valued, want to feel special. So if you're in a cult, a small group of people, and you're doing something that is involved in the cult, there's a sense that can creep in of I'm special because I'm in this secret group. We have a secret language. We have secret procedures. We've been brought close to the master, so we must be special. So it creates this spiritual ego of specialness, right?
Which is so ironic.
Right.
Sorry.
And we forget that we're all special in our own way as human beings. And when we discover that, that's where we find our own power, because I think we give away our power to so many different things without knowing. And this is one of the things that for me has been really, really a positive thing, is reclaiming my power and realize that I don't need to be accepted by someone else to be special. I don't need to be part of a group to feel special.
Right. Right. And it's also like taking back autonomy versus just sort of following someone else blindly, so to speak. Not that there wasn't, I've been struggling with that kind of, even though I went to the commune not as a child and I wasn't really spiritual or seeking anything spiritual. It's almost like the trauma afterwards is what made me want some spiritual connection, right?
Oh, wow.
And it was, and it was, because that's when I was like, before I was like, why do people want this? I just want to, I want to be able to buy stuff because I never had any money, or you know what I mean? Just as a teenager or whatever. But then once I started having the trauma symptoms come up, I was like seeking so intensely, and it's such a crisis of faith.
Yeah.
Especially because of all these teachings. And for me, they were inextricably linked to the commune. And I saw the same kind of spiritual circles kind of having the same characteristics, that it all turned me off. And so it's been a big question, like, how do I find true spirituality? And I almost felt like I'm not being true to being who I am if I'm spiritual. Like there was this weird thing. And finally I was like, you know what? I'm still allowed to have spiritual connection in whatever way resonates with me.
Mhm.
And just
Yeah.
because I was abused in the name of spirituality doesn't negate the fact that I need spiritual connection. And so re-owning that has been extremely challenging, but I feel like I've come a long way.
Mhm.
And finally realizing that they can be separate. The abuse
Mhm.
is not tied to the spirituality. But like
That's
you, it's like I will not follow anybody.
mhm.
It's
Mhm.
about my own connection and
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. And it's so ironic, like, because if I go back and read my journals from whatever, 1970 or 1971, I was seeking, I was searching. I wanted to know something I want to know the inner truth. I want to know something like that, right? If I go back and read those, it was very clear. I wasn't looking to join a cult. I wasn't looking to follow a guru. I was looking for an inner kind of connection to understand my own being within me, right? Well,
mm,
I took a winding road, all these things happened, and now guess where I am? I'm just back in the beginning, in my own little space, finding
yeah,
and
yeah.
having what I originally wanted.
Yeah, I mean, it is ironic because I know Osho or Bhagwan, he would always speak about, the ordinary, the extraordinary is being ordinary is extraordinary. And what I've
Mm,
seen now is some of the people who have kind of come around and do support me. Some of them are kind of like, yeah, all that spiritual stuff doesn't matter. It's all just so simple. It's about the present moment, all the stuff that was taught and somehow is elevated to this point of complexity when it all just comes down to something quite simple and day to day,
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And then one other thing I wanted to mention is, there's been a lot of pushback about me writing.
Mhm.
And I think the part that's the most painful is like a couple book reviews from people who were close friends who just sort of berated me. That's hard when it's close to home.
Yeah.
The other people who I don't know who they are, it doesn't hurt me as much. But
Mhm.
on the flip side of that, I get messages now and then from people who like this shattered their reality. And they thank me and they're like, wow, your book got through to me.
Yeah.
And and
Yeah.
I've been a disciple of Osho for 50 years and suddenly I'm seeing it in a whole different way. So that's that sort of keeps me going and feeling sort of like I can keep talking because that's the point. And if I can touch someone deeply like that, that means the world to me.
It's a beautiful way. And maybe that's where we end, just keeping an eye on the time.
Mhm.
And we've probably been about 40 minutes or so.
Yeah, we could
And
probably talk for hours.
yeah, no, but your last point, it's a beautiful message. And I think that may resonate with, a lot of us, that kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
um,
And to keep in mind, this is not, we're not on a timeline. You know, your articles, your podcasts, my book, they're out there and they're going to find their own organic way. And
yeah, yeah.
um, yeah, so hopefully both of us will keep touching people in ways that they didn't expect and open their minds to a new perspective.
I hope so. I mean, that's, as I said to you offline earlier, I mean, that's my hope is um, be able to put this podcast up on YouTube. Maybe people that are in a certain place in their life, maybe this can help them, no matter what cult they might be in, no matter what belief system they might be trapped in. I mean, so it's an incredible, maze that we can find ourselves in. And, you're a survivor. You survived much more than I did. But I know that there's people that have, been really injured and hurt by
Mhm.
giving their life to someone who pretended to be more than they were, and
Yeah,
took advantage of them, which is the case with Prem Rawat. And so I'm committed to keep to try to bring the truth, bring it in a respectful way, stay truthful, and be honest, and be of service, to others that are interested in that. So that's where it
right.
comes from. Here's what I'll do.
Yeah,
So for anybody listening, once I publish this on YouTube, I'll find the link to your interview with the TV station, and
yeah,
I'll put that in the comments or what have you. So anybody that's wants to hear
yeah,
more about that
yeah,
can find you. Also, given the fact that you're a book author, how can people find your book?
And the easiest way is on Amazon. There's 3 versions. There's the print version, the e-book version, and the audiobook version. So the audiobook is available where audiobooks are available. The print book is available on other outlets too, like Barnes and Noble, but the ebook is exclusive to Amazon. And if you just search my name, you'll find it. If you search my name on YouTube, you'll also find that video usually comes up first, the one with KGW News. There are other podcasts that will come up too.
Yeah.
Oh, and in fact, I created a YouTube page. I forgot. You could go to my YouTube page and there's links to everything there. So it's easy to find. Given that my name is unusual, you should be able to find things.
So if we just put in Sarito Carol, it'll pop up. Okay.
Mhm.
And if people want to get in touch with you, to write you an email or whatever, what's the best way to do that? Through
my website,
the website? Okay.
saritocarol.com. There's a form there that you can
Cool.
send me a message.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you very much. The last thing, I have a call out to make before I conclude, because there's going to be a trailer that goes on to this. And the guy that's going to do the post-production on this is not mentioned in the trailer, but I want to mention him because he's a beautiful guy named Peter Okonkwo. He lives in the UK. He's a Nigerian man who emigrated from Nigeria to the UK on a kind of a scholarship, a literature scholarship. He was promoting literature in Nigeria. He's an amazing guy. And Peter does the production for me, and I want to thank him. And I want to let people know that who's behind the scenes here. So that's a call out to Peter.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. And other than that, thank you so much, Sarito, for your time. It's a pleasure to see you again. And I wish you all the best.
You too. Keep going. Okay.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Living a Conscious Life, the podcast, is a co-production of Select Books, Scout Media, and myself, Don Johnson. Editing and post-production was done by Kenichi Sugihara. Our theme music, Yes It is my own composition from my CD, Sweetwater, available on Spotify and Apple. I hope you enjoyed the program, and if you did, please subscribe to the show and give us a positive review on Apple Podcasts. For an even deeper dive into prescriptive advice with a practical footing across a wide expanse of human experience, Living a Conscious Life, the book, is available wherever books or ebooks are sold. This is Don Johnson saying thanks again, and I'll be back soon with another podcast.
And look into the sun, leave the past behind. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.